Hey, this is Chuck Marshall with Wani, and I'm talking to Jeff Waters from Annihilator. Jeff, how are you doing, man?
Fantastic. Enjoying a sort of interesting weathered day here in Ottawa. It feels cold out, but it's a hell of a lot better than our winters.
Awesome, man. So your 16th album, For The Demented, is coming out on November 3rd. Fans can get a taste with the new video, Twisted Lobotomy. I think that's a really cool tune. I've actually heard the whole album. It's awesome. I think it will really speak to the heart of Annihilator fans and Thrash fans in general. How do you feel this album stacks up with the rest of the Annihilator catalog?
Well, thanks for the kind words, and yeah, excited about it. I don't know, Annihilator's always been, well, mostly sort of, as many North Americans know, as sort of European, 95% European band, in the sense that that's the only really, other than South America and Japan, the only place that's really taken off for us ever since we started. And it's like the reaction's really good on it, but as people from North America that do know about us know, we have a whole pile of different things that go on every couple albums or every album.
Yeah.
From singer changes to production styles to you know, one of the cool things I like about this band and the way I've been doing this since the 80s is I've had the freedom to just do anything I want. And since I'm a fan of heavy metal and thrash metal and lots of styles of music, I don't really have to play one style. I can always play around and do whatever I want. So it's from a love song to an angry thrash song or something, and everything in between. But I think this recent record, after the previous one I did in 2015, I knew while I was doing the record, or especially the writing, that I wasn't filtering myself from Waters, the metal fan. I was really kind of, you know, if there was a riff that was very clearly influenced by Metallica or Mustaine or Gary Holt Exodus or Slayer or something like that, was the band, my favorite band. Usually I'd sort of put a cap on most of those and say, damn it, it's a good riff, but it sure sounds like Gary Holt or Dave Mustaine or whatever.
Right.
That album, Suicide Society, ironically did better than most of the records in the last 3 or 4 before it, but it was clearly influenced heavily by a lot of bands that I like. And this time, after I finished that record, and I was amazed at the reception in Europe to the record, and it brought us up to a new level again. We keep seeing to going up real slowly here in the European world for 10 years now, and it did well. But I said, I better not do that again, because there are some people that clued in right away that, hey, that's like Damage Incorporated on that song, and that's like, you know, so. And that's just the fan part of me, and when you're a musician and a huge metal fan, that's going to come out no matter what. I just didn't filter at that time. So this time, I knew let's go back to the opposite. Let's go back and see, not try to go to the early days and try to copy a record that was successful, because that never works, at least almost ever. I kind of thought, well, our first 4 records were very successful overseas, some around the world, maybe the first 2, but generally in Europe, the first 4 and the demos were like the big things for us, you know, popularity-wise. And they're all different. Those first 4 records are all different singers, different styles. So copying was not an answer to anything. I just wanted to go back and see what was more Waters style versus what Waters likes to listen to style. And I think I went back, captured that, thanks to our bass player, who was like I'd say a 50-50 equal partner in the writing of the music for the record, because I had to have somebody that had the ability to look at me and just shake their head and say, dude, that's Slayer, stop it. And then, you know, I get 2 or 3 of those fan kind of riffs that I love to write, and then bang, he goes, that's Waters, and then that riff would stay. So I think that's really what happened. It's not so much a back to the roots, it's more like back to Waters, what people in the early days kind of said, hey, that sounds like that Annihilator guy, you know. Right. So that seems, there's a bit more of that on it, but you still can't take away the fan out of the musician.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. Kind of led into my next question, because I know for this album, it had been mentioned that Rich Hinks, you know, your bass player, you dragged him into the studio, and so it sounds like he did some of the writing. Was he involved in all, like, because I know that you do most of the heavy lifting, you know, with writing and recording. Did he get into any of the production, any of that, or just primarily songwriting?
I'd say, I gave production, sort of co-production credits on the CD for the writing process, because he wasn't there for after the music was written. So I wanted to give him some kind of production credit, because without him, basically co-producing that music writing, it wouldn't have turned out this way at all. So,
yeah.
And he's a great bass player, but he didn't even think he was going to play the bass on the album, because I played, the bass and written drums for and lyrics and sang on 5-6 records, and played almost all the guitars and blah blah blah, engineered, mixed, produced, master, managed, blah blah blah. So, he kind of knew, okay, Water's already, it's like the AC/DC Malcolm Young thing. I mean, there's some albums in Hetfield where sometimes AC/DC and Metallica would be doing a record and play the rhythm guitar part, and then realize that Angus or Kirk Hammett playing the other speaker's rhythm part may not be as tight as if Malcolm or James played both tracks.
Yeah.
So that's kind of on the guitar the way I would do it, and on bass it's the same thing. When I write the bass parts, it never made sense to me, since it was more of a solo project, to have the at the time the bass player of the day, so to speak, come in and play the bass, because it was like, hey man, I sit here and write the parts, I know exactly what I want, let's do it.
Yeah.
But I think with Rich it was again, it was just get in there. Essentially I write the riffs for records maybe a year or two in advance over the years of touring for a record or whatever spare time.
Mm-hmm.
And this time, if you could round off the amount of riffs I had ready to go to start the writing for this new record, it was maybe, let's say, 150. We literally deleted 149 of them and kept one riff from that whole 2 years of off and on writing that I was doing myself.
Oh, geez.
Just started from scratch. So that's like a big change for me, and it's not something that, I've already asked Rich, hey man, we got some gaps in between the next 2 years of touring coming up. Let's plan to do some writing. So it's already kind of set that, and it makes sense that it's going to sound better once you get the right set of ears.
Yeah.
In there helping you direct the ship,
Yeah, definitely. It's, you can definitely feel a change in this album, and I'd even say it's slightly heavier than some of the stuff you've been doing the last couple albums. So I like it. Yeah.
Again, I guess if I had to say what it was, I'd say two things. One was Rich got to sit there and say no, yes, no, to what I was doing, coming up with, and also the fact that I realized really quickly after the last album, despite it doing very well, that oops, I think you should have filtered that one a little more.
Right. So not only do you guys got the new album coming out, but you're heading out to Europe with what I think is like the ultimate thrash metal tour with Testament and Death Angel. And I got to tell you, the first time I ever saw Annihilator was with Testament back in '89.
Wow.
So I think this is fantastic to have you guys back together. How did this tour come about?
Well, was like you touched on. Testament was the first band that took us to Europe for our Alice in Hell record in 1989, and they not just going on tour was an amazing thing, but they personally taught me quite a few things about touring and trying to be professional. And then they were a young band then too, remember?
Yeah.
But they were a little bit older, and they sort of showed me the ropes. And I was like a bright-eyed kid that was, just had an album go through the roof in 3 weeks, out of nowhere, nothing, in the basement, writing songs to Wham! You're national and nice buses and people are showing you attention. So it was amazing. But they showed me a little bit how to put a cap on that, and just to try to calm yourself down and focus on playing as good as you can and keeping your band focused a bit on there, because it's easy to get distracted touring, especially when you're younger.
Yeah.
So they taught me a lot of stuff, and then over the years with our career in Europe, it's been nonstop. We see them and play shows with them all the time over there at festivals and things. So I think it was Eric I was talking to last year. I said something like, hey, you know what, we should do a tour again. And then bang, they were looking for two bands to play on their Brotherhood of the Snake, and called me up, and bang, it's like a 1989 bill all over again.
It is. It's awesome. It's fantastic. So, is there any chance that you guys will come to the States?
Well, we've been trying a lot. What happened essentially is when this sort of traditional heavy metal, thrash metal kind of died in most parts of the world. I mean, 98% died around 92 to 93. And it did. All the venues in North America, Canada, and the States, and everywhere started, either shutting down or turning into this newer styles of music, or the Seattle scene, or kind of, you had to be Biohazard, Sepultura, Pantera, then this kind of, or the Seattle scene, and blah blah. That sort of crash. Well, we got lucky. We got lucky and kept Europe. Somehow people still wanted us over there. But when it kind of came out, you know what? Go back and ask the question super quick. Brain fart.
So, do you think the tour will come to the States?
Yeah. So, thank you for getting me on track. Basically, I said goodbye to my own country in the States because nobody wanted us and many other bands anyway. And unless we changed the name of our band or tried different music, and so we continued on, and we didn't even try to get the band back here because I didn't see any scene happening until 2000 and something. Yeah. And then when it was clear, people were starting to come back with this kind of music, and people were discovering. Young kids that were into Sum 41, Blink 182, all these pop punk bands were wearing Motorhead and Priest and Maiden shirts in their videos. Right. Their young fans were starting to discover these bands, these classic heavy metal bands, and then that spun off to the Anthraxes and the Slayers, and a lot of other bands were getting rediscovered by young kids. Then I realized it was coming back. I went into the States, in Canada, trying to get record deals, thinking for some silly reason it wouldn't be too much of a problem. And I was literally shut down by every single label that I approached, and got a reality check that when you go out of an area or a country or a scene or a continent, and just because you're having some success somewhere else, right, and that your kind of genre music is kind of coming back here, number one, I'm not the sort of young kid that's going to sign any contract, so I had some kind of minimum that I needed for a reasonable deal. And number two, why would labels want to put money into a band that's not a young band that wasn't really big in the States and Canada, and they could sign 5-10 bands for a similar kind of agreement? They could sign a whole pile of bands for terrible contracts and hope that one of them took off rather than investing in this older band that really wasn't big anyway. Yeah. So I got a rude awakening, so I've been having a hell of a time getting back to the States. I get these one-off offers to come in to do certain shows, and then it becomes like, hey man, your drummer's from Italy, your bass player's from the UK, you're from Canada, and your other guy's from here, and oh shit, was it expensive to bring that band in? And then promoters realize, well, it's not like the reunion of the Rust in Peace lineup here. We're talking about Annihilator. Yeah. So, in other words, yes, you could go in there and slave away and not, but I hire my guys, so I have to pay them, and then the whole thing becomes financial disaster no matter how we look at it. We even had, I'll say, at least 2 members of the Big Four asking us to come on their tours in the States, and if you can imagine that, talking to labels saying, hey, so-and-so will take us on a month tour here, and labels still just saying no. Really? Wow. That's disappointing, because that kind of dovetails into my other question. There does seem to be a resurgence in thrash metal. I mean, pioneers like yourself, Anthrax, Testament are still out there creating new music. Then you've got the upstart bands like Havoc and Power Trip and Hatchet. They're bringing fresh blood to the genre. So I was kind of curious, what is your thoughts about the longevity of thrash music, as a genre? Well, I mean, it'll always be there. It's always been. Even when the underground scene went massive, like I think at some point this kind of music in North America and the world was, I think, the 3rd biggest genre of music behind pop and country or something. I can't remember what it was back in the 80s, but this kind of music it's just always going to be there. It's just a matter of will the money behind the industry sort of start supporting it more? Yeah. You've got Liquid Metal and Jose, and you got all these, yourself, everybody. There's so many North American, you know what I mean, whatever, press and the radio and all that, the satellite radio, and that are still keeping it alive and getting the music out there, and labels are starting to see that, hey, listen, let's, make sure we get our bands on these stations and press and all that. It's still there. It's just a matter of, it's never going to die. I mean, obviously it's not going to die. This stuff is just too good to go fade away.
Yeah. So Jeff, I just have one more question for you, and it's kind of a silly question I like to ask. What's your favorite breakfast food?
Breakfast? My God, let me see. I don't drink alcohol for like almost 18 years now, so my vice is food. Let me see. So, breakfast food, Eggo waffles with butter and Canadian maple syrup.
All right. Eggo's even, huh?
Yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, Jeff, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with Wani and myself.
Yeah, I appreciate it too, and I hope I'll meet you someday in the States at a show or something.
Yeah, that would be awesome, man.
Great, well, I appreciate it. Thanks for your time.
All right, take care.
You too.
Bye.